The information provided on Terminal Addiction Podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute for professional medical or mental health advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician, licensed therapist, or other qualified provider with any questions you might have regarding medical or mental health condition. Never disregard professional advice or delay seeking it because of something you heard on this podcast. The views and opinions expressed by the guests, the hosts, are their own, and they do not necessarily reflect those of any affiliated organization or institutions. While we strive to provide accurate and up-to-date information, we make no guarantee regarding the completeness, reliability, or applicability of the content discussed. Listening to this podcast does not establish provider-patient relationship. If you're experiencing a medical emergency or mental health crisis, please contact emergency services or crisis line immediately.
Welcome back to the second episode of Terminal Addiction.
Hey, Doug.
I am Doug H.
And I'm Paul B.
And we're going to be talking about some early stages of recovery things that some people go through. You know, we're trying to reach out. We're not necessarily here to try to help get people sober. But one of the things that we realized was after that first 6 months, a year, 2 years, it was kind of like, what's next? And so we wanted to bring some ideas and talk about some of the common challenges that people face and things that people can do to try to make sobriety fun. Because I don't know about you guys, but I did not get clean and sober, be miserable, and just sit and watch TV all the time.
You know, one of our friends that we met during those early meetings, she would love to say that she would never want to live through the last 6 months of her addiction again, never want to live through the first 6 months of her recovery again. You know, it is pure hell. And so, you know, we want to talk a little bit about those types of things. Like risky behaviors, early sobriety, you know, things that just don't seem to be moving fast enough. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that for the next few minutes.
Yeah, I think everybody that's gotten clean and sober remembers that first, 3, 4, 5, 7, 10 days and how miserable that was with the sweats and the shakes and the diarrhea and feel like you're losing your brain and you can't sit still and you can't keep a thought and you can't find a thought and your feelings are all over the place. But once that subsides, you're still going through what they call the post-acute withdrawal. That's that next 6 months to year, even 2 years for some people. And a lot of those issues are things like sleep disturbances and boredom for some people, just trying to find your place in the world and still not feeling like you're totally comfortable in your own skin. And I know that for a lot of people, that's the time frame when relapse takes place. They get clean, they get sober, they go to treatment, they start in a 12-step program, and life starts getting better. And then they hit that 6-month mark, they hit that 1 year mark. Maybe some people hold on a little longer, and they just don't feel, better fast enough. It's kind of the theme that I hear from a lot of people. So we want to throw around some ideas, some things that we've heard, some things that we've actually done ourselves to try to make our sobriety more fun and enjoyable.
You know, my first attempt at sobriety, I thought I could do it myself. I'm a registered nurse. I thought, I can do this on my own. And so I did. I stayed sober for several months. I lived through the passing of my mom. And I was absolutely miserable during that time. And it was later that, I started looking at my lab values and everything seemed to be going better. But I was still miserable. And that's what led to my relapse. And so, yeah, it's really tough during those early days.
Yeah, I remember my first introduction to sobriety recovery was when I was 16 years old, and I at that point I don't think I was interested enough in it, but I remember a seed being planted, and I remember going to some meetings with a friend of mine's dad, and sitting in these rooms with people that were still smoking cigarettes at the time and drinking coffee, and they just sat around and laughed, and I couldn't wrap my brain around that, so I had to go back out and do some more research on my own. Come to find out when I was like 21, got sober for a couple years, and I was going to meetings and I was enjoying life, and I could at least look at two different things. When I was drinking and using, life sucked. When I was sober, life was okay, and that was about as far as I ever got in that first round of sobriety. Again, had to go back out and do some more research, and these days, I enjoy my life. I do things. I have fun. more friends in the sober world and the recovery world than I ever did. And Paul and I go to concerts together. We go to hockey games together and baseball, and I really enjoy getting out and enjoying life. But I remember when that 6 month, when that year and a half kind of hit, it was just kind of like I still felt blah, and I just didn't have that drive like I did when I first got sober. And for me, I needed to keep that passion and that motivation.
I think what we miss a lot are there's just those small victories. You know, just getting sober was in itself big feat, but the family coming back and starting to trust us again, and all those things that just I was missing over years. Um, During the last part of my addiction, I never left the couch. I literally never wanted to leave the house, never wanted to hang out with anybody. And I met so many good friends during treatment. Um, again, that's what way Doug and I met was, in treatment and then going to this great outdoor meeting, which was cold as hell during that first winter. But um, yeah, that's when I started seeing some of the value in what I was doing. I did gain a lot of weight during that time. I hate to admit that I gained 40 pounds during early addiction, but no, that came off eventually too. Um, and it's really just that I need to see things moving faster, and once I started seeing that, then recovery became whole lot easier.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think, the first 30, 60, 90 days, 6 months, you're getting those coins at AA meetings or those key tags at NA meetings. And, people are so proud of you, and you're getting all that praise and accolades from friends and family. And more or less, people are just glad you're not dead. And I just remember that. And then after a while, people get used to it, and you get used to it, or I got used to it. And I needed to, stay energized, stay motivated, and stay recharged. And so, going to meetings was very helpful. Working with newcomers was very helpful. But one of the things that I found was just giving myself some little bit of reward, and that was tough because Paul and I got sober in the early days of COVID. So 2020 there really wasn't much going on. But once things started opening up, Paul and I would go to hockey games and, like I said, concerts, and I enjoyed going to like the comic book store and just spending $20 there and spending 2 hours there, and letting my little inner nerd come out, which was like a little reward. It was like a little treat. And then once things started opening back up, going out and having coffee with people and going out for dinner after a meeting, or getting breakfast before a meeting. Those all just felt like normal things to me, but I forgot how important normal was, because my life was anything but normal for probably the last few years when I was out drinking. And so those little victories, those little moments of joy and happiness, I really learned to value and cherish those, and really hang on to those.
I think it's real important that we talk about the connections that we make in those meetings too. Some of the closest friends that I have today are people in the rooms, and I'm not specifically talking about AA, NA, or any specific group, but just being able to reach out to other recovering addicts and having somebody that you share a story with. I went into this thinking, oh, there's nobody like me, and first thing I found my first day in recovery was, oh, you guys are all just like me. Um, I had been through a couple relapses, and I'm thinking, oh, all the shame of having to try over again. And I realized, well, yeah, just about all of us have tried on our own at one point or another, or tried going through treatment and needing to try again. Um, and that self care of uh, you know, like Doug said, going to that baseball game or a hockey game or going to a concert. Early in recovery, I was told some things you can't do your first year, and well, why? And the reason is because it's really easy to relapse because we're used to associating those with the behaviors that we were doing before we got sober. You want to expound on that a bit?
Yeah. I know for me, going to restaurants, early in sobriety was not a good idea because I wasn't paying attention to the food. I was paying attention to what everybody was drinking, and my ears are still cued to the wine glasses clanking and corks coming out of the bottles, and the sounds of normal people drinking like normal people, which my brain latches onto. And so for that first, year, I really didn't do much, and it was a little bit easier, I think, because it was COVID going on. But in the past, when I'd gotten sober, I adhered to that guideline as well. But I think once I was ready, I didn't know when I was ready, and I didn't get back out, and I didn't do as many fun things. But going into an environment where people are drinking and using before you're ready is risky and dangerous. Um, and so for people, we got to find things to do, outside of that. And so I think getting together and doing little cookouts, or if you know somebody with a pool, going and doing that, or just learning how to have fun sober. And we've got some friends that do a lot of walking and hiking. We've got friends that go, skiing and snowboarding. I got friends that just go out and spend time. We got friends that are into arts and crafts and music, and I can't tell you how many guys have picked up a guitar after X amount of years of walking away from it, and they find that it's more fun, and they're more into it when they're clean and sober. So I think this, just giving yourself some grace, giving yourself some patience, and just following through with your recovery plan, I think is super important.
Yeah, something that Doug said that really brings back a memory. I was still in treatment, and of course, during COVID lockdown, there were very few restaurants that were open, and my wife and I, we wanted to go to a restaurant, so we found one downtown. And I'm still very, very early in recovery, but I remember distinctly hearing the martini shaker behind me, the ice in the martini shaker. And when I went back to treatment the following Monday, uh, the counselor, she just gave me hell for going into a place that had a bar that early in sobriety. And I get it. I totally get it because it did trigger me. Um, today, would that bother me? No. For a long time, I couldn't go to a hotel. My my sons had to follow me when I went into the grocery store because I used to go straight to the liquor store. But today, after a couple 24 hours, it's much easier to do that now. I've broken away the association between what I used to do and my behaviors that went along with that. So it does get easier. It does get easier. And today, I told you that I gained a lot of weight in early recovery, but um, eventually, I didn't reach for a chocolate every time I wanted to have a martini. So it does get better.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of people, one of the risk factors is a sense of overconfidence. We want to get back to what we were doing before, whether it's working, overtime, whether it's spending time with friends and family who still drink and use, or whether it's just going out and thinking we are more ready than really were. One of the things that I made a point to do was work through those steps with my sponsor during that first 6 months, and really solidify myself in my sobriety and my recovery, rather than rushing out and trying to get into a new romantic relationship. Spending time, working on the friendships that I have, and working on the relationships with like family and friends and stuff like that. And one of the things that I noticed is that not all of my drinking and using friends got to come with me on my sobriety journey. The ones that did, I think those relationships are stronger and more powerful than they were before. But I couldn't stay. I couldn't go hang out at the bars. I wasn't going to go hang out in those same basements and garages and backyards where I get drunk and high. And I had to find new places, and I had to find new faces, and that was a really important thing for me. So I'm really glad that I met somebody like Paul, where we could go to these meetings and we could spend time, and I could come over to his house, and we could go do some fun things, because I think having a pal getting sober with, and having some running buddies, and having some of those old timers around you to help guide you and point you in the right direction, I think it's super important. And so I try to be that for some of these guys coming up. I go to a meeting where I spend a lot of time with some newcomers, and I just try to pass along what I was given, and try to be there for them the same way that people were there for me. But yeah, trying to get out and enjoy my sobriety has been one thing that I think is different this go round versus previous attempts at sobriety.
When I finished at treatment, they gave us a coin. And for me, it seemed all important. It was like I finally graduated. I finally finished all this. And, I came home and realized that the only person that was important to was me. I need to prove myself every day. So today, I don't carry the coin that I got when I finished treatment. I carry my 24-hour coin. Um, I did lose some friends when I got sober, and that still hurts to this day sometimes. There were friends that um, remain addicted, and I can't do anything about that. The only one I can control is me, and having to give up on some of those friendships, it stings sometimes, even years later. But in the long run, it's so well worth it.
Yeah, and I like the idea of the coin. I remember you were given a lead not long ago, and you mentioned something about carrying that 24-hour coin. And the guy sitting to my left and the guy sitting to my right, all three of us just reached in our pockets and pulled out our 24-hour coins. And I think that's for me that's the only thing that matters is getting through today. The monthly coins, the yearly coins, those are great. I think those are milestones that other people can really keep track of. I know for me, I gave my mom and dad a lot of my monthly coins, my first year, and I make sure that they get a yearly coin just so that they can track that. Because for earth people or normies, that's kind of how they keep track of things. But for addicts and alcoholics, I've really leaned into the idea of the 24 hours ahead and the one day at a time model.
So one of the things that we'd like to do is, reach out to you, and you may have some questions, you may have some comments, experiences you'd like to share, and so we want to give you all the opportunity. If you go on the website, if you go on any of social media, it gives the links to our email, as well as the website has an area where you can leave comments. And so we want to get your feedback on what you like and what you don't like, what worked for you, what didn't work for you. And we're going to try to keep this going as well as we can. But it's going to depend on, the information that we get from you all. So.
Yeah, I think one of the things that Paul and I have kind of agreed on is this isn't going to be any one denomination of recovery. This is just going to be recovery as it appeals to the masses. And so we'll talk about things from different fellowships, and we'll talk about different books that we've read or that we've been suggested. So we'd love to hear from you guys some of the alternative methods for some people, because like I said, for everybody that gets clean and sober, there's as many different ways. We'd like to hear about some music. We'd like to hear about some art. We'd like to hear about what you guys are doing for fun, what you guys are doing to enjoy and enhance your recovery. Because, I think one of the things that I try to pass along to the folks that I work with is there's a difference between sober and being in recovery. And sobriety is the act of saying no. And that gets tiring after a while. And recovery is the act of saying yes to new things. So what sorts of things are working for you, and what sorts of things are you trying? Because I think it's important to try new things, whether it's picking up a hobby or going back to school or just trying different things that other people are doing. Somebody invites you out to something. It might not be your thing, but you go anyway and you realize that you love it, like hockey. It was one thing that Paul and I really bonded over. I'd always enjoyed it, but I didn't submerge myself in it as much as I did once I started hanging out with him. So, yeah, we'd really like to hear from you guys. We got the Facebook, we got the Instagram, we've got our webpage with an email address, we've got, I think, an X and maybe a Discord. So we got a whole lot of ways for you guys to get a hold of us, and we'd love to hear what you have to say. So looking forward to hearing that. Looking forward to talking with you guys some more.
All right. Take care.
Thanks, guys.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect those of any affiliated organization. This content is for informational purposes only and is not intended for professional advice. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend. Until next time.